Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this inaugural episode of the Pathways to Productivity podcast. I'm one of the podcast hosts, Chris Baker, and with me is my co-host and good friend, Mr. Tony Taslim. G'day, Tony. How's life down there south in the world's most livable city?
Really good, Chris. It's unfortunately not too good today, but hey, pretty much Melbourne is so good. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a bit wet and windy up here as well. So this podcast's been in the pipeline for quite a while, and I'm really pleased, Tony, that we're finally getting it started, because I think productivity has got to be one of the most important topics in business and economics today. And it's a much needed discussion point, I think. And personally, I think productivity is a very misunderstood and under-resourced area. And there's so much opportunity, I think, left on the shelf at many organisations here in Australia. And I'm sure that's true for organisations abroad as well. And I
Yes,
don't
it
know
is.
about you, Tony, but I see opportunity sitting absolutely everywhere, right at the fingertips of many businesses and government agencies. And those opportunities could enable them to increase their capacity, their throughput, and their quality. What are you seeing? Do you see the same?
Yeah, actually, Chris, it is. So I can see many other industries that I'm at with my clients. I can see many things can be improved.
Yeah, and for commercial organisations, I guess what this means is business growth, higher revenues, and higher margins. Who wouldn't want that if you're in a commercial business? And for government and NGOs, it means delivering more services at a lower cost, or delivering more within a constrained budget that you have. And let's face it, budgets for governments in Australia are looking very constrained over the near future. So you would think that productivity would have to be one of their most important topics right now.
Exactly.
And further to that, I think, there's another prize on the table there, and it's that for all organisations, if you can implement the sort of productivity tools and processes and philosophies that we're going to talk about in this podcast, you can also make the work much more meaningful and satisfying for employees and take a lot of the stress out of it, because who likes fixing defects and reworking stuff and having to apologize to customers? So the answer to that is no one. And all of these things have remedies. It's not instant perfection, but there's definitely a pathway, a roadmap that can lead people through the increased productivity path.
Yep.
And that's what we want to talk about here.
Yes.
And everyone wins, right? So
Exactly.
it's a
Exactly.
no-brainer. So the question is then, why aren't all businesses and organisations driving productivity growth as effectively as they can?
So it turns out like it's not as easy as it sounds, right? So it's not like just turning your hands over. There's so many things that we will discuss in this podcast to answer those productivity issues, challenges, and perhaps we can share a little bit more on the opportunities with these productivities.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think it's not necessarily that it's difficult. If I look at all of the theory for productivity, it's very accessible. There's a lot of information out there, perhaps a little bit too much. And I think where people need help is filtering through that to understand in their type of organisation, what is it exactly that they need to do? And that's where you and I come in our role as consultants, and we'll tell everyone a little bit about us shortly, and I suppose establish a little bit of street cred. But it does turn out that productivity isn't quite as intuitive as we'd hope. And so that's what we want to unravel at this series of podcasts that we're planning to do. So this first episode, we're not going to dive straight into the content here. This is more about introducing the podcast and ourselves. So Tony and I are going to introduce ourselves, tell you a little bit about our backgrounds, and explain what we're hoping this Pathways to Productivity podcast will bring to all of you, our audience here. So I guess I'll kick off. Tony, if that's all right.
Yep, sure.
as I mentioned earlier, my name's Chris Baker, and I'm the CEO and founder of Callista Consulting, which is a business that I started back in 2006. My background is technical. I did a short stint in academia teaching physics and electronics, which actually I really enjoyed doing that. And I think that's part of what led me to the consulting pathway later in life, is the fact I do enjoy sharing knowledge and discussing technical things and talking to audiences about that. But after that, I moved into industry, and this is in the early 1990s, and I was very fortunate then to be introduced quite early on in Australia, in terms of its lean history, to the concepts of lean manufacturing. And that led me into study Six Sigma as well, and a host of other theories and toolboxes that surround the productivity world. And I think I was lucky to get that early introduction. And also it really appealed to me. I was working in I suppose, a type of quality role at the moment. My initial job in industry was fixing advanced scientific instruments that didn't work at the end of the lines. These are brand new things, and they either needed recalibrating or an adjustment, or there was actually a fault with them. And it was my job to determine all of those. And I started seeing patterns and so forth. And I got very interested in root cause analysis and those kind of things. It was kind of innate in me to try and improve things and make things flow more easily. And from that point, I moved through a couple of other technical businesses, but I moved into a management stream. So, I spent some time in middle management and then finished my career working at quite a senior level, running a business line for an American-based global technical company. And so I got to see the perspective of process and productivity from the perspective of someone, working on a factory floor, from someone in middle management, getting pushed from above to achieve things and getting resistance from the team maybe, and having to learn how to engage with the team and how to get them on board with focusing on some core goals. And productivity would always be part of that, profitability and all those kind of things. And what I found was that these tools I'd learned back in the lean manufacturing era could be adapted and used in just about any type of process. Process is process, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're attaching part A to part B or whether you're processing a case file for the tax office or something like that. Process is process is process. And that learning then encouraged me to set up my consultancy. I won some awards at that organisation, the last one I worked for as an employee, for sales growth and for lean processing improvements that were directly affecting margins. So I thought, look, I've learned a bit along the way here, and I've got a story to tell, and I think I can make a difference in a lot more organisations. So that's when I started, and that's almost 18 years ago now. And since then, I've been helping organisations of all types and sizes to review their processes, identify improvements, and then support them in implementing those improvements. And quite early on in that path, I identified that whilst the theory around process improvement and the tools are all very accessible and the teams pick them up quite well and easily, that the organisation still found it difficult to execute the necessary change. And this leadership aspect, I think, is one of the key barriers, and we definitely want to be talking about that. So we also, at Callista Consulting, developed suite of tools that develop leadership capability and change management capability. And I'm sure those topics will be important ones that we'll cover in the future podcast episodes, because ultimately the biggest gap in productivity, I think, firstly, is awareness, that business leaders need to be aware that there is productivity on the table they're not capitalising on. And once your business gets to any sort of size, even in small business, these opportunities will be there for better efficiency and productivity. So awareness is the first thing. Having got the awareness that there is a roadmap or a pathway that you need to go through, and that includes engaging your teams and putting some of these leadership bits in place, and then getting people to help you and show you how to recognise opportunity. And certainly, the approach we take here is to help educate businesses. We don't just go in there, identify the improvements and tell them what to do. I mean, sometimes that's what people want. And I suppose if they want that, we can go and do that. But I much prefer to operate at a level where we're teaching people why those things will make a difference and how to identify them and how to implement the changes themselves, so that we can leave a lasting capability to continually improve within the business, and that's what makes it stick. So that's Calista Consulting in a nutshell, I guess. Tony, do you want to talk a little bit about your background and what you do there at Efficient Business Solutions?
First of all, I should say, like, hey, that's impressive resume. But anyway, hey, yeah, efficient business solutions. So what we're doing is helping companies to navigate technologies and also aligning them with their business goal for short, medium, and long-term goals. So in the past, I see so many companies that underutilize or misconfigure their computer systems or their technologies. So this is why I'm building efficient business solutions back in 2014, and now it's like 10 years old. I've been helping businesses in various industries, from manufacturing, from telcos, from professional services as well, accounting, finance companies, and working closely with those leaders so that we can create a workable, efficient, and effective business systems and solutions to cater those business. So the productivity coming from those efficient and effective systems. So that, like as you mentioned, that awareness and roadmap, those are part of the solutions or the system that we need to build, or we help to build with the clients to improve their productivities. So in the past 20 years, I've been helping many big clients, big companies, working with IBM, for example, Telstra, and Fishy Industries, to improve their productivity, making sure their IT system reliable and always up. So, and also security is really important, because when it's not secure, for example, there's hackers or there's like ransomware that can bring down their systems, and then like, hey, imagine 1 hour downtime for a big paper machine, how much profit they lose an hour, probably up more than 50K an hour, right? So that's the thing that we are doing at Efficient Business Solutions, and yeah, that's pretty much it about Efficient Business Solutions.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tony. And obviously, you and I know each other quite well, and I'm well familiar with your business, and you've helped me out on the odd occasion as well, which I'm very grateful for. And you know, it is a key aspect of modern business that we deal with a lot of information and data, and we need real-time feedback from our operations as to what's going on. So building that connectivity of data across the business, managing that data safely, you know, as you mentioned, I think it's just key. And I think what I'm particularly interested to hear about, and this will be one of our early podcasts, will be the impact of artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
And automation, process automation. So we'll definitely be delving into those topics, I think, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you've got to say about those. We're going to tackle the core topics that sit in that productivity landscape through our podcast series. And some of these are not new. They've been around for a long time. And yet they're not as well understood, I think, as they could be, and sometimes misunderstood. So we'll hope to dig into that a little deeper and clarify some of those things. And I'm hoping we'll get some really good guest speakers in for us to interview and talk to about productivity. And I think this will give our listeners a lot of great variety and topics of interest, as well as looking for that stuff that's been around for a while and is well known and documented, there's also a lot of emerging ideas, such as AI, that
Yep.
I think will be keys to unlocking productivity into the future. And I know some of my clients are already entering this space. They're looking at what AI can do for them. They're definitely investing more in automation and robotics, and I'm sure they will be topics as well. And both you and I know many people in those industries, so I'm sure we can get some great speakers in to help people understand what these things can do for them, when and where to apply them within their businesses, and how to go about it, what the costs are. All those kind of things, I think, will be very important and useful information for people.
Exactly. Yep.
So we'll tackle that core stuff. You know, the Lean Six Sigma theories and toolbox will be part of this. We'll look at supply chain and logistics. We'll look at people management and leadership. We'll look at sustainability and the circular economy. And there's a whole bunch of other things that I think will emerge as we continue to run the podcast. And I think very importantly for our listeners, we'd love to hear the feedback. You know, what do you want to hear about? What do you think are the most important topics from your perspective? And it will be different for our listeners depending what industry they're in. So I very much invite people to leave feedback and comments, please, and of course subscribe to the potty, and we'll work together to provide what people want.
Right.
So thanks everyone for joining in. That's our quick introduction. We're very much going to look forward to seeing you in future episodes. And we'll be back soon. So please subscribe and stay tuned, and we'll talk to you soon.